Meet earlier this month, 17-year-old Austin Metcalf was killed back on April 2nd. A teen student from another school has been charged with his murder. The crime has been thrust into the national spotlight, bringing some controversies along with it.
You woke? Time to get up. Well, as you know, I want to talk today about the tragic death of Austin Metcalf, a young man who was 17 years old, was attending a high school in Frisco, Texas. He was stabbed by Carmelo Anthony, age 17. Now, let me give you some details on the backgrounds of what happened, and in the end, I'll have some things I want to say. So basically, Anthony was at this track meet, and there are several tents set up along this in the stadium. Carmelo Anthony decided to sit on this particular tent. I believe that belonged to the school that Austin Metcalf was a member of. Austin Metcalf asked Carmelo Anthony to leave the tent. Uh, Carmelo did not. So Austin asked him again, and apparently put his hands on Carmelo. At that time, Carmelo went in his bag, and the statement that was made was, "If you touch me again, you'll find you see what happens." Basically, is what was said. Now, this was said apparently by the students that were around. Most likely, they were all from Austin's school. His brother was also there as well. His twin brother, Austin's twin brother. Um, Again, Austin Metcalf asked Carmelo to leave. This time he put his hands on Carmelo. Carmelo pulled out a knife from his bag, stabbed Austin, left the scene. But when he left the scene, he did go to a police officer and say, "Hey, look, I just stabbed somebody. It was self defense. He assaulted me. So then in defense, I stabbed him." He went to the officer and said, "Hey, somebody's been stabbed." And he said, "Yeah, it was." And who did he said, "I did it." Now, unfortunately for this young man, he was arrested at the scene because Austin Metcalf, unfortunately, and most tragically of all, and I want to say this to their family, I'm sorry for your loss, died at the scene of this incident. Now, there's several questions that surround this that I have to ask. I have not seen a police report or had any school officials attempted to engage uh, the students when they saw this altercation happen. Did they try to get in, intervene or anything? Apparently, they didn't. I understand there were students sitting around in different groups, so the coaches could have been in one area and the students could have been in other places. See, from my experience with track meets as a young man, track and field is one of those events that happens in several places at once. You got your field events, you got what's going on the track, and there could be several things going on at the same time. At the same time, track meets can go on for hours. It's not like it can happen in a few minutes or a few hours. If they do a track meet after school, that thing can go to 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. Um, if you go to states meets or county meets, those meets last all day. Um, and kids are sitting in the stand waiting for their particular event to happen. There's things like the mile run, 800 meter, the 100-meter dash. There's hurdles. There's pole vaulting, javelin, shot put. All those things could be going on during track meet. Anyway, so these kids are sitting around. Nowadays they have tents. Now when I was in track and field and I was in Alabama, I was in the heat. You had to put on suntan lotion, even a guy like me, because you gonna burn. Uh, it is what it is. You're going to burn in that particular weather. Anyway, so Carmelo was probably looking for a place to escape the heat in Texas because Texas is a hot place, and he saw this opportunity, sat under the tent. I don't think he had any malintent by what he was doing there, and Austin was not too happy with this student from another school sitting under his tent. I don't think there was any real ill intent other than what happens between two teenagers. Both of them are 17 years old. They get heated real quick, emotions flare up, and there was an engagement. Again, the question I have is, where were the teachers? Where were other school officials? I understand the police were around and stuff like that, but they weren't here at this point. Um, it's tragic what happened. I'm gonna say something. I need to say this up front. There's a lot around this case. So after Carmelo was arrested, he was put in jail. He's put on $1 million bond. In Texas, they have this law where they can just charge an offender who's underage, a minor, with a crime without ever even asking the courts about it. The courts don't even have to have the authority to do it. Their prosecutors, it is kind of at their discretion. And as the article I read about this says, it's disproportionately rendered against black offenders for the most part. They don't get useful offender status. They instantly are charged as an adult. Carmelo was charged with first degree murder, which is the most criminally negligent type of murder out there. I mean, it's almost like you intended to kill someone. I don't know if I don't know if Carmelo intended to kill Metcalf, and that's part of the story. So I'm telling the story from this angle because I want you to see these two boys right here. One's white, one's black. Carmelo is black, and Metcalf is white. I do not think that at the time of the incident, race had anything to do with it. That's just my personal thoughts. I'm not sure if that's true or not. We'll find out later on as the investigation comes, as more information is put out there. But race has become an issue with it because Metcalf and his family have received death threats. Uh, Carmelo's family has received death threats. So Metcalf and his family, I don't know, maybe they are receiving death threats also, but Carmelo and his family are receiving death threats. The judge who reduced Carmelo's bond to $500,000 allowed him to go home with a monitor as long as he stayed in his home. She's been threatened. Officers surrounding the case, because apparently they didn't do what they needed to do to Carmelo right away, they have been threatened. So Carmelo and his family have been moved to an undisclosed location. There is a lot going on around this case. In fact, let me show this video right here.
Americans, fight, 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 fight.
Hey Jeff, it's Jake Lang here.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
Jeff, first of all, my entire heart rests in your hands. I would be in my position, not even as somebody even knew your son, but somebody that shares the same understanding. I grew up as a 17-year-old young white man too, and I grew up in fear of my life around black people because they were killing and robbing people around me all the time. And I don't understand, as I was a father, you could sit idly by and not condemn the culture that killed your son. There is an epidemic problem in this country, and your voice could be one of the loudest voices in this country, but you've chosen to recoil out of fear and continue the suppression. Why will you not stand with me and with the rest of the people? We're not calling for racial divide. We're not calling for hatred. We're saying 350,000 attacks on white people by black people a year in this country is wrong. Why can't you stand that and say with that? Maybe you can. Would you be willing to stand by me in a press conference or in an individual interview and talk about this issue that is larger than Austin at this point? God rest the beautiful young man's soul that would have been one of our strongest voices if he was still alive today.
Are you done?
Yes, I am, sir.
Okay, my turn to speak. You are part of the problem, my friend. You're trying to create more race divide than bridging the gap. I do not condone anything you do. You do not have any.
That's called white guilt.
No, let it talk.
Of my son. Let me finish. I give you your time. You take my son's face off your website. I am not associated with you.
You're creating more Austin Metcalfs with your weakness, sir.
Promote you.
You are creating more Austin Metcalfs with your weakness.
In history, this is the shit where white people will no longer.
I often talk about this, and I don't get to talk about it enough in what I do as far as podcasts. There are people who take advantage of certain situations. In this country, there is a lot of racial trauma. Now, I don't mind saying it out loud that is a major issue in this country, that racial trauma is an issue in this country. There's some things I wanted to say here today. about this case, because it gets crazy, and it's gonna get crazier in a minute when I show you another video. But uh, it's been white versus black, conservative versus liberal. Everybody kind of advances their own things for this. The tragedy is these two boys whose lives, one who's lost his life, and another one whose life has probably changed for the rest of his life. Do I personally think that he's been overcharged? Yes. I don't think it's first degree murder. It's barely second degree murder. I think it's more like manslaughter. To be honest with you, it was an incident where two people were fighting, one person feared for their life, and in Texas, it may even be stand your ground. But he won't get that opportunity because he's. Sometimes you can't avoid thinking that, as a black man, that race does play a part in this. Even though I think at the point of what happened, race had nothing to do with it. Some people might say, yes, it did. Maybe we'll find out later that race had something to do with it. But the fact that people are raising money for Anthony to give him a fair defense, because people are allowed to have a fair defense in their trial. I'm going to bring up some issues with that in a second. And what's wrong with the United States when it comes to fair defense. Um, Lately, people do not believe in due process, and that is apparent in what's happening with immigration right now across America. What's happening with what people think should happen to the young man, even at FSU, who just shot 6 people at the school, a white man, by the way, who just shot 6 people at the school. It is evident in this country that we are basing everything on emotional, forget our constitutional laws and everything we believe. We'll talk about our Second Amendment rights, but all the other rights don't seem to really matter anymore, right? And the fact that people are raising money so this kid can get a fair defense, I have a defense for that. And but I'm going to show this video first to give this particular individual a chance to say what he's got to say.
On behalf of the black community, I would like to apologize to the parents of Austin Metcalf for making a hero out of the young man that killed your son. I apologize that there are so few fathers around and so few male figures around to teach the black community about emotional discipline, about what's right from wrong, about emotional regulation, about not making a hero out of a thug and a criminal. I apologize on behalf of the black community because they are the ones that are raising money for your son's killer. They are the ones that are funding this new lavish lifestyle that your son's killer is living. I apologize on behalf of the black community because they are so confused about
Several things about this video. First of all, I do not apologize for all black men, and I'm not even apologizing for one. When I apologized to Eric Metcalf's father, that was me as a black man, as me myself apologizing. This individual that you just saw does not represent me or my views in any kind of way. That's a problem. What's problematic is he's one of these people that latch on to whatever white supremacy is, because I don't know. I've never understood black people who latch on to white supremacy or who become the golden Negro. That, and I said it, and it's gonna bother some people that I said it. Become the golden Negro for them. Him, Whitlock, uh, uh, Tim Scott, uh, you name it. There are several people out there. I can put a name to it. We can talk about Candace Owens if we want to, who grab onto this and then attack black people, black culture, and black things, and then say they're apologizing for the black community when you don't even represent the black community in any kind of way with what you say. You are basically representing the white community as a black face, right? So I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that. Then everybody's going to say, oh, you're throwing race into this. No, I'm not throwing race into this. I'm just letting you know what's going on here and how people are building up on the racial card. It isn't just black people donating money to Carmelo Anthony. There are white people, liberals, uh, people who believe that this man deserves a fair defense in his case. Self-defense. Texas is a stand your ground state. So there are people who believe in stand your ground that are actually contributing to Carmelo Anthony's funds. Now, let me bring up a point, because these white supremacists and other people are trying to harp on this fact. They're trying to use propaganda to say the black community is just violent. They always protect violent people, and they do things like this. I will remind you of two particular cases that y'all hate to hear us talk about because it's black trauma. Trayvon Martin and Ahmaud Arbery. Let me tell you about the Ahmaud Arbery case. In the Ahmaud Arbery case, there were people who actually raised money, and I'm going to show it here on the screen. There are people who actually raised funds to defend the killers of Ahmaud Arbery. Remember, this young man was chased down in Georgia by 3 men in pickup trucks while he was jogging through this neighborhood, because they were upset because he apparently went into a house, was looking around, this house was being remodeled. Ahmaud Arbery said he was interested in remodeling. Yes, they claimed some equipment was stolen, but the people who owned the house said that Ahmaud Arbery never touched any equipment. And he was not one of the people that had been coming to the house taking from the house. There were some other individuals, white individuals, that were coming to the house. But they chased down this man. Ahmaud Arbery got in a scuffle with one of them. That person ended up pulling the trigger and killing Ahmaud Arbery, and in the process called him an N-word as he was looking over his body. They laid there, watched him die, called the police, and so on and so forth. But the reason why I'm bringing that up, and I want you to remember this, and I'm sorry if those details were graphic for some folks. The reason why I'm bringing that up, there was money raised for these two individuals, for these three individuals. There was money raised for their defense by white people. Maybe some black people, I don't know. But it was some people raised money for their defense, just like we're raising money for Carmelo's defense. And I don't know if this young man, like I said, I don't think he's been properly charged. If there is a charge here, like I said, it could be stand your ground, it could be manslaughter. That's how I feel about this case. So then I bring up the Trayvon Martin case, the man that killed Trayvon Martin. His gun that he killed Trayvon Martin with sold for over $500,000. Y'all see that right there on the screen? It sold for $500,000. This man, who apparently got into a scuffle with him, and because of Florida's stand your ground law, it was up to the defense to prove, up to the prosecutors to prove that he actually committed murder. Now, we remember that he was told by the police to stop following Trayvon, to stop engaging with Trayvon, but he decided to do it anyway. And in the end, he was let go, right? His defense worked. And I believe y'all raised money for his defense too, to help him out. So in these two cases, you did the same thing, but now you're trying to put it on the other foot, as if there's something wrong with people raising money for the defense of this young man. Something else I have to say again, this black man that you saw here, he does not represent me as a black man in any kind of way. When I talk about Eric Metcalf's father and apologizing, I apologize for the death of his son. I'm sorry that your son died, but I can't apologize for Carmelo. I can't apologize on the behalf of black people. I can only apologize on the behalf of myself, because I feel sorry for what you did has happened to you. I pray for your family and I hope everything goes well for your family. But I cannot in any kind of way put the whole blame on the black community. This is what these two individuals are trying to do. They're trying to put the entire blame on the black community. At the other side, there are some things that are happening on the other side that are tragic, that are problematic. That there are those who are taking advantage of this and saying, "Hey, this white boy, tried to beat up on this black boy. This black boy was defending himself." The word black and white gets thrown around a lot. And again, this is a white boy, this is a black boy. We got two people of two different races, and I do have to bring that up because that's what's happening in the after effect. I don't even think, by listening to Carmelo's father, he says, people like this other guy, you are what's wrong with the problem. And you know what? I mean, not Carmelo's father, but Metcalf's father. Metcalf's father was on point. He made the point that needed to be made. He said what he said. Meanwhile, this other man, you're weak, you're weak, you're weak. No, no, no. What's weak is your attempt to use this to divide our community. It is a constant reminder of the problem we have in this community. And yes, you saw the Trump flags all around. Trump will say, I'm not associated with this, and I won't say he's necessarily associated with that, but hey, he is getting rid of DEI. I just threw that in there just for the heck of it. But I think I made a point here. The point I'm making here is that race is being used in a tragic situation for political means, and there's no need to do that. There's this thing called due process, and as far as I'm concerned, Carmelo Anthony deserves the same due process that you say would be due the young man who just killed 2 people and injured 5 others in Florida, right? The same due process is due. The same due process that Ahmaud Arbery's killers got. They got to go to court, both state and federal court, for the crimes they committed. They were convicted, but they got a fair trial, right? They got an opportunity to present their case before a judge. That's the same thing Carmelo should be allowed. But in this country, again, we have a problem with due process because you see what's going on with immigration. People are cheering out loud for the fact that ICE and other police agents are literally entering people's houses and just carrying them off and deporting them without due process, arresting you without due process, just doing whatever. This is what is the destruction of our democracy. And when we use race and use other things to help us do that, that's what these people are trying to do. They don't believe in the Constitution to me. It means you don't really believe in the Constitution, or you have a one-sided view of that Constitution. So again, this is about due process. Carmelo deserves due process for this crime, whether you believe he's guilty or not. He deserves due process, and it should be tried in the court of law. He should not be treated as we have done in the past, where we try to lynch people, where we hang people. We're trying to kill his family. We've had Tulsa, Oklahoma, Rosewood, other examples where one incident sparked a riot and black people get killed. Now we're out there wanting to kill the judge. You got people wanting to kill the judge. You got people wanting to kill the police officers. You got people wanting to kill not only Carmelo, but they want to kill his entire family. And now there's some people sending death threats to Metcalf's father because he's opposed to what they're doing. People, let's stop. Let's stop. I want to thank y'all for tuning in to Thought You're Woke, No Speed Limit podcast. I hope that you like, share, and subscribe, and y'all have a wonderful day.
You have been listening to Thought You're Woke, No Speed Limit podcast.